Hey there, this is Matthew Jennings on this episode of Peachjar Extra Credit. It is a very special episode coming to you live from the National Conference here in beautiful Bellevue, Washington. We are talking media relations. Stay tuned. Ellen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, this is cool.
This is way fun. We are at a booth here at the conference at Inspira in Bellevue, Washington, and I know it's super busy. You're running around, taking in a lot of professional development, meeting a lot of people, building relationships, so I appreciate you taking a moment to talk to me about media relations.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is fabulous.
This is so fun, and I know you have a unique background on this, so I'm really excited to do this with you.
Yeah.
If you could just start for all of us a little bit of your background, where you're from, what you're doing now.
Absolutely. So I am Ellen Boyd. I am the Executive Director of the North Carolina School Public Relations Association.
Shout out to NC-SPRA.
Yes, all my good NC-SPRA folks. I've been doing this. This is sort of my retirement gig.
Okay.
Because before 2020, I spent 27 years as the Communications Director for Kannapolis City Schools.
That's a lot.
In North Carolina, yep.
Beautiful.
For all 27 of those years, I was a member of NSPRA and of NC-SPRA.
That's awesome.
Did a couple of tours of duty on the board of NC-SPRA.
Yeah.
And so, I've lived in that world of school PR, and somehow I had the foresight to tell my employers that I was retiring. I gave them a year's notice that I was retiring at the end of February 2020, 2 weeks before the world ended.
Wow.
So did I get out?
Are you kidding?
No, I am not kidding. If I could time the stock market like that, we would really be in business, wouldn't we?
Wow. And for those of you that are just joining us, maybe new to the profession, that didn't have the benefit of growing exponentially beyond your comfort level, March 2020, you don't maybe understand how wonderful that would have been.
Exactly. So, but shortly after the beginning of the pandemic, in July of 2020, I joined on with NC-SPRA.
Okay.
So that was awesome. And before I did all of that in Kannapolis City Schools and NC-SPRA, I spent 11 years on the assignment desk at WSOC TV in Charlotte. So have my TV news background as well. So I was on that media side, and then I spent 27 years on the other side.
That's so awesome, and that's really what I wanted to talk to you about, because it's so unique. We do have a lot of PIOs and communication directors in this space that come from that journalism side or the media side, and I am always fascinated to hear what they have to say and what their feelings are as far as media relations go, and how maybe things can be better between school districts and reporters and news reporters. We have a lot to learn, I think, from each other.
Yes.
And so I really would love to dive in a little bit on your experience, maybe even some of those, like maybe for those that are kind of new to the profession. There's also some seasoned veterans out there that they still, when that media call rings in, they get kind of nervous and anxious. What are some of your
That will
thoughts
never
around
go
that?
away, by the way.
It will never go away.
That will never go away. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Your stomach always does do a few somersaults when the media come a-calling.
Okay, so I don't feel totally strange. 'Cause
No.
It sure does. Unless I knew it was like a beautiful thing, like some great event that we're having, and I'm getting a call about it. That was always great. But there's always some things, crisis and different things that happen on campus. And when you get that call, always spin me up just a little bit. So I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, absolutely not alone. And I'll just tell you one other little part of my background. I earned my master's in communications management from Syracuse, and pretty much all the research that I did at Syracuse was focused on transparency and the value of transparency. And I did a lot of research with examining different strategic publics for school districts, the media, legislators, business people, parents, as well as from the school side, school boards, superintendents, administrators, teachers, teacher assistants, and the differences. And I literally examined how they viewed public education and the value of transparency. And you know what?
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, they were two completely different viewpoints.
Talk to me about that a little bit. Can you unpack that just a little bit more?
Yes. So I literally asked all the people in my research, they had to sort 40 different statements about public relations and specifically about transparency in public education.
Wow.
So, things like school districts shouldn't be held accountable until they're given enough money to do the things they need to do. Exactly.
Wow.
Or
Wow.
school districts, organizations, I didn't say school districts, organizations don't have to tell the whole truth. They just have to tell their side of the story and let the marketplace figure it out, you know?
Wow.
And it was 40 different statements, and people had to sort it. And basically what it amounted to was the educators tended to sort together.
Wow.
And our strategic publics sorted together,
Yeah.
but on two different planes.
No doubt. I mean, already those questions have me thinking, I'd already actually start kind of sweating a little bit, like, how am I going to answer that one? Because I know how I feel, from a PR perspective, but then I also know how I feel from just a member of the public, and I want transparency.
Exactly. So what I ended up, concluding was that folks on both sides were correct. Yes, educators are asked to do way too much under awful circumstances many times,
Yeah.
and they are absolute heroes in what they do and what they accomplish every single day.
Yes.
But it is also true that they need to accept accountability and bring it on themselves. Otherwise, it will be forced upon them
Yes.
from the outside.
Yes.
And the media plays a part in all of this. And so sometimes when the media come calling, we assume automatically that they're out to get us.
Yeah.
We want to go hide in a bunker.
Yep.
And sometimes that might be the case,
Yeah.
but often it is not. The media folks have a job to do. They need their minute 15 or their 45 seconds or whatever amount of time they've got to fill. And if you help them fill that time, give them a little information, and send them on their way, they're going to be happy. You're going to come out with a much better story.
Yep.
And you're going to have a better relationship down the road for the next time.
I love that. You just dropped a lot of gold nuggets right there. But what if you're just not ready to take the call?
Okay, so first of all, I'll back up a little bit. Whenever we would get a new education reporter at whatever media outlet, we would literally bring them in.
Okay.
And we would sit down with them. I would sit down with them. The superintendent would sit down with them. The assistant superintendent often would sit down. And we would just have a conversation.
That's beautiful.
And we would talk to them. In my school district, we literally straddled two different counties. So we were a unique animal to begin with.
Yeah.
So we would explain the differences that came with covering our school district.
Yeah.
We would explain how funding worked for public education in North Carolina, because a lot of people don't understand that. The more information you can give them, the more background you can give them, the better story will come out on the other end.
Yes.
Because they're dealing with good information. So we built that relationship right from the start.
Okay.
We gave them information that they would help give them background, help them give them understanding for whatever story came down the road,
Yes.
good, bad, or indifferent down the road. So we started with that. We started with that relationship. Yes, with
based relationship building.
Exactly, and we gave them resources to walk away with, so they could have it, keep it, be in their desk drawer, or nowadays in their computers, or their phones. So we started there, and that way, when that phone call did come, you could say, "Hey, you know what? I totally understand. I just found out about this myself.
Yeah.
If you can give me about 30 minutes or an hour, let me find out a little more information, and I will call you back, and I will give you what I can."
That's great. I had, a couple of things there that I'll just kind of tag on to, this is really good stuff. Building those relationships, that starts before the crisis or the emergency happens, really does truthfully need to start before.
Yes.
I would always make sure that, when I talk to other PIOs about this, they're kind of new to the field, let them know, like you said, the reporters have a job to do, you have a job to do, and you both need each other.
Exactly.
You have to build that relationship and rapport before, and if you're new to your district, really good idea to go out there, get a hold of the local reporters, set up a coffee date, set up that lunch date, bring them into the school district that you were talking about, which is a brilliant idea, to have them meet some of the other leaders and build that relationship. So that they know they can count on you, and you've got kind of a face with a name. In addition to that, I also had just posted by my desk holding statements that I could just kind of play with.
Yes.
And so I had about 10 or 15 holding statements And I would just kind of tailor the most appropriate one for the moment if I just wasn't ready for that call, and always letting them know that I'll call you back. I'll get back out in touch, or I'll email you when I have more information.
Yep. And if I can
that's
just
a good one.
throw in something right there that you made me think of, part of it is educating your superintendent
Yeah.
and the people in your school district that they absolutely, positively must let you know about things that are happening
Yes.
before they can become even bigger.
Yes.
Because when I was able to be informed about those things ahead of time, I could anticipate that those calls were going to come.
Yep.
And I could I could at least get my thoughts down on paper, and I could put down what I knew I could say,
Yeah.
what I knew I probably couldn't say at that particular point in time. And so I would have that ready. And part of it is to just educate the people that you work with. NSPRA has a great slogan that I've always remembered. Second graders like surprises, superintendents don't.
I love that.
And neither do school information officers
No.
and communications directors for school districts. You
Yep.
must keep them informed so that they can be at least prepared. Your stomach is going to do somersaults. You're still not going to like it when the media come a-calling.
Yeah.
But you can at least be somewhat prepared and know what you can tell them. And in a crisis, by the way, there's always 3 things you can say.
Here we go.
What you know,
Okay.
what you're doing,
Yes.
and how you feel about it.
Okay.
So you can always say those 3 things. And the other thing I always remember is the business statement comes before the communications part of it. You've got to know what you're going to do before you
Yes.
can know what you're going to say.
Yeah, because if actions got you in trouble, words aren't going to get you out of it alone.
Exactly. And I've had a superintendent that would come and say, Ellen, what's our message? No. You've got to know what we're going to do.
What are we doing about
Yeah,
this?
what happened? When did we know about it?
Yep.
What did we do when we found out about it?
Yep.
And what are we doing about it now
Yes.
to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Yep. Well, that's brilliant. And you said a couple of things there just to kind of touch on. Public information officers, directors of communications, the people that handle the comms roles, and superintendents are 2 of really the only people impacted by everything that happens.
We're the
at a
only
school district.
generalists in a school district.
And so it is really important. I had a joke in one of my school districts, and I actually had maintenance and operations make me a sign that I was the public confirmation office, not the public information office, because I can always confirm it happened after I find out that it happened from the news media.
Exactly.
Another thing you mentioned, and I just want to go back to really quick, and I think this is critical, is meeting with those beat reporters. You have to remember that when a reporter gets assigned to an education beat, they may not come from our world. They may not understand education. They may be a sports writer who just got assigned to your district, and the nuance there is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And even things like public comment. I've had to educate reporters on public comment because they will get really upset when the public, maybe somebody makes a comment about, well, I was up there and I spoke to the board for my 3 minutes and they didn't even say anything to me. And that reporter might not understand that by law they can't speak on anything
Right.
that's not on the agenda. And that appropriate agenda thing is there, in fact, to protect the transparency for the public's sake. Mm-hmm. And so when you have to educate a reporter on those laws, and Robert's Rules of Order and different things, and why things have to be agendized for the certain period that they have to be legally, so the public is allowed to participate in the discourse.
Right.
But you find a lot of nuances there. Special education has a lot of subtle nuances. There's a lot of really subtleties about what we do in public education that if you're not meeting your beat reporters and talking to them about how you can help, educating them, you can really run into some interesting and unfortunate stories down the road that then you're playing catch up on.
Exactly. And you'll always have the circumstance where a beat reporter just got assigned. Normally they cover this, but today, they're onto this one. But if you've built up a relationship even with other people in that organization, they're going to come in with a better frame of mind, and you're going to have a better chance
Absolutely.
of coming out on the other end with a better story.
Absolutely. This has been great. So do you have any other kind of ideas or kind of words of advice for maybe somebody that is new, or just anybody that does get that immediate apprehension when a reporter calls? From your perspective, when you were working there and, on that side of the house, the media side of the house, if you were going to pick up and call a school district, were you apprehensive? What was going through your mind?
You talking about when I was on the reporter side?
Yeah. Did you have that same feeling?
Well, I think on the other end...
And were you aware of the feelings
No.
that the other person might be having just by taking your call?
Probably not to the degree that I am now.
Yeah.
But I think when you're on the other side, the media side, your fear is that you're not going to get an interview because you know that your job is to get that minute 15. You got to get a minute 15 of something good to fill the air. And you got to find somebody that's willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so you got to get an interview. And guess what? If they're not able to interview you, they're going to go hang outside the school and they're going to go find whatever parent, whatever whoever that they can get, the student that comes out. And you probably want you want your soundbite to be more of the minute 15 than those other folks that they're going to have to track down if you don't talk to them.
Now, kind of last question I have as we wrap up here. I know I've taken a lot of your time.
Oh, no problem.
What about positive news stories? How do I get more positive news stories out there? What can I do to maybe connect with a reporter and just get more of the good news out? And I know, the bad news kind of sells, and that's what gets the attention of the views, but we do a lot of beautiful, wonderful events out at school districts, and I'd love to get more positive coverage as well.
Absolutely. Part of that is being a good gatekeeper yourself. I think too often school districts can approach news stations, especially TV. Nowadays, newspapers will run just about anything you send them, pretty much verbatim.
Wow.
Because, they're so short-staffed.
Yep, absolutely.
But TV stations, not quite, that much, although they are short-staffed. So when you call them up, you've got to make sure that it's a really good story.
Okay.
Don't waste their time with things. Sure, it might be, important.
The bake sale or whatever.
Yeah,
it's important to us,
exactly.
but not to the large audience.
So if you're going to bug them all the time, it's going to be like crying wolf, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that when you call them, you've got something that's got good visuals with it.
Yep.
Not bunches of people sitting around. We used to call that BOPSA, bunches of people sitting around. BOPSA, yep.
Ooh, I love that.
These TV news stations don't want to cover meetings. They don't want to just cover a bunch of people doing something that's not very visual.
Yeah.
They need a good visual. They need a good story.
Okay.
They need good sound bites.
Okay.
And you got to make that available to them. It's not a matter, you can't go over here and get that. Nope, you can't go over here and do that. Nope, no. If you're going to invite them, you've got to give them access to something good.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that what you're offering them would make good TV for them.
That's awesome. I found some success with video press releases as well, where I would go out and film an event, get those really good visuals like you talked about, and then just edit them really quickly. No effects, no transitions, just one short 10-second clip to the next, maybe 30 seconds in length, and then I would write out a script of what was happening for the voiceover, and that would just be the B-roll, and then I would send it in and just let them know, you can use this exact if you'd like. And I had a couple of stations pick that up, and just they needed filler.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Especially on the weekends, right? When schools often, aren't in session, right? And they need those things on the weekends. So absolutely. But, again, this goes back to educating your people.
Yeah.
That, they're going to come. Why didn't they come cover this? Well, you really got to be selective in what you bring to the TV news folks to ask them to come cover.
That's
so,
awesome.
Again, it's a two-way street.
Yes. That's beautiful. Well, I really appreciate your time. Anything lastly that you'd like to share that we just haven't talked about today?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely.
This is a fabulous vehicle for sharing this information. Peachjar is a great partner, and I just, don't be so afraid. Yes, you're going to be nervous when the media call, but build that relationship with them.
I love that.
Honestly, I'm still Facebook friends with reporters that I worked with.
So am I.
10, 15, 20 years ago, and I still get birthday wishes from them.
Yes.
And wish them a happy birthday. And I know that they love dogs, and we had a relationship.
You know what's funny about that? You bring up a very beautiful memory, and I have a letter from a reporter. She was particularly hard on my district for whatever reason, and just felt like she was a tough reporter. She walked a very tough line. As honestly, if I was on her side of the game, good reporter, right? On
Right.
my side of the game, I'm the one taking the hits. Then it was always kind of tough. When she moved out of state, she wrote me a personal letter that said, I just want you to know that sometimes probably came off that I was a little tough, but many times you were the best part of my day.
Awesome.
I remember that right now.
Yeah.
It was a really, I keep it actually as part of my job interview packet. I mean, it just tells volumes about what you don't know, the kind of relationships you are building, even if it might not feel like, you have personal relationships sometimes with these people, but that one really hit home. The other thing I will say is there are some out there that are on the other end of things.
Yes.
Just like we have, some bad actors in every facet of professional work life. You will run into a few that, you'll need to kind of work through and make sure that you can trust with, some of these relationship components we've talked about here today. And you'll work through that. As you get to know them.
And that is one other thing I wanted to say about how you will know the ones you can trust. I had one in particular who was so very good. She was so knowledgeable about education in general. She knew her stuff. She also could read between the lines.
Yeah.
And I knew I could tell her things, even that, I probably shouldn't have been telling her, but I knew I could tell her that, exactly. I knew I could tell her that as background.
Yep.
She wouldn't violate that trust, but she would use it to, understand where this information fit into the bigger picture. And you will find those reporters that you can trust.
Yes.
That takes time.
It does.
And it takes some work.
Yep.
But when you find that, it is such a valuable
Take
thing.
care of that person. Yeah, take care of that relationship. You're right. Yeah, I've had a few of those too, and I can't speak highly enough about their integrity, their work ethic, and how important understanding the nuance and the context is sometimes, and a story being a bigger story than it should be.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to release you back to the wild because I know you've got a lot going on and a long day ahead of you still. And we're just on day one here at the national conference. So it's still got a long road ahead of us. So really appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully you found this helpful. Be sure to like, share, comment, follow for more. I know that you can reach out. I'll speak for her on this one. I know you can reach out to either one of us with questions.
Yes.
Because that's just who she is. So
And
be happy to help.
www.ncspra.org.
That's right. NCSPRA. Shout out to NCSPRA. I will see you.
Thanks.